We're recording you, Megan.
Hello, Meg. Welcome very much. Where are you calling us from?
From Magog, Quebec.
Beautiful. So a little quick overview. We're gonna give people like about 3-4 more minutes. And usually the way we do it is we have this weekly call around a certain topic. Today is a lot about understanding what's the deeper why we care about health and thriving, and longer term one also. And then we normally make a recording of the call for people who cannot see it, but also we want to tune in to the wisdom of how to engage a conversation where we invite people in the community to each week go a little deeper. That's why one of the core values that we have in the way we did Thrive Beyond is beginner mindset. So that no matter the level of expertise, the idea is to come kind of tuned to that beautiful way that Zen Buddhists always have in their meditation, which is to see like what's truly fresh that in the present moment feels alive. That doesn't mean get rid of expertise. It just means the expertise always in service of the main purpose. So I'll do a little intro and then we'll go there. And I know that I guess Yati and Yulia already know you, but I will get a chance to get to know each other a bit better. If you want, I'll do a little intro of myself while the people may join. I grew up in Costa Rica. As I say, half Costa Rican, the other half also Costa Rican, but my great-grandfather came from Wales, so that's the Jenkins. He was looking for gold, came to Atenas, didn't find gold, found a beautiful Costa Rican woman, and all my hundreds of cousins come from that guy. But I went to study in the US. I was very good at math as a young student, and they measured that. I won all the math Olympics. I got all the scholarships to like Harvard, Princeton, Nobel Prize winner people. I studied like math and engineering, but I also studied public policy. I was very interested in how to make better, like what now we call impact investing, things that would be good ways of investing that also supported nature and biodiversity. But I also studied comparative literature, and I started finding some meditation teachers. And for a long time, I felt that my spiritual path and even the parts about health were like on the side of my work that was like going to events around the world and helping create investment possibilities with the Aspen Institute at TED, like with all these forums. And then I realized that I had always had this pretty core, but I wanted to make it really be at the center of what I did, not kind of a side thing. And I worked, because of that, for the last 15 years, I've worked a lot in trying to help people who are already successful find what they do that's of bigger significance. So it's less of going to a 15-year-old and asking what they want to do, and much more people who already in government, nonprofit, medicine, law, like kind of rose fast because I knew many of them. They were my, let's say, insecure overachievers from like the top institutions of education.
Yeah.
And then step back to say, okay, what's the significance? What's the why? So I'll share some from there. And now it's great to have people that I've met in this context who have been decades in this path. And now part of my own purpose, I think it's to be a little bit of a bridge and weaver between the things of the system that do work. You know, many things are outdated, but some work. Some of the technology can be helpful to the new earth. Some of the new tools can be useful, but all based on first an ancestral wisdom that the first pillar that we have within Thrive Beyond is to really connect to your inner wisdom, your inner teacher, your source. It doesn't matter the wording, because as long as you're looking for it with more content, with more external things, then the idea is to be able to have a community of sharing a lot of wisdom, but helping people guide that from their own kind of deeper sense of purpose. So we'll start now. Pikara, can you hear us okay? You're on mute, but you can also just check in on the chat.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay, no, great. So I'll do a 2.5-minute intro of the topic today, and it'll be great to hear the different paths. So when we talk about thriving, not just being less sick or less stressed or just surviving and not dying, but thriving is a kind of flourishing, like the way you want any living thing, you want it to be its best expression. And the beyond part of thriving beyond is beyond some of the own limitations of often a very over-individualized, often very hierarchical set of institutions we inherited. So I think when one is really thriving, personal thriving, communal thriving, and thriving of Earth are almost the same thing. Like that's, but it is possible, and we all know, to just succeed in a very narrow field. But you can succeed even in running a retreat center, and definitely you can succeed in business or law, and not really be thriving. So the topic today, there's many languages for this, and I'm going to send it back for a short context, how you first try to understand your why. Why do you do what you do? Second, you find the how. Let's say if you really want to help people heal, there are many ways you can work, and all of you have different techniques, but you understand the why before the how, and then the what are like the outcomes that we focus and measure. So sadly, sometimes around the health world and the biohacking world, there's too much of the what. Like, what do I measure? What do I improve? Like, how is my... There is not enough of the how. Like, if it's not done in a connected, deeply intuitive to your own inner voice way, you may not even be doing it in a very thriving way. But even more, it's like you often ask people, why? Like, why do you even care to stay healthier for longer? And I'll give you an example from this book of Peter Attia. That's one of the best books on longevity. He explains how Esther Perel, in the second or third session she did with him, she told him, Peter, why do you even want to live longer? You are emotionally suffering almost all the time. And you say it. And your relationships are suffering. Like, and even Peter was like, wow, like, it's incredible. Like, he's been trying so hard to be one of the top researchers to understand longevity and centenarians. And he could not even answer, like, why his own life is so full of just pushing and pushing, which is a very male archetype in this place. So I'll start with the first question here, which is, I would love if we can go around and share what has helped each of the four of you in the early part of your life, whenever you got a clarity of this, connect to your why in a society that does not often offer like the spaciousness of really asking the question. Like, they often ask you what you want to study, or like what kind of house you want. And I'll leave a second round of questions after we do the first one, what helped you, which is, I want to invite us in the second half of the call to imagine several decades into the future. Because at whatever age we are, we know it is possible to stay healthy for decades, not just for 5 more years. Even though there is this myth of like midlife crisis and decline, but those are not how centenarians used to live. Those are almost the symptoms of an epidemic of loneliness and an over-individualized and over-medicalized disease care system. So I want to, in that second part, invite our imagination. So imagine us 90 or 100, whatever. But let's first go around. If you want, whoever wants to start, Meg, if you want to start, like, what helped you tune into your why, and share a little bit of how that was for you.
I think my why was not in my early years. I think it happened around when I got divorced, and it was like this shoot off to discover other parts of myself that I wasn't paying attention to, I would say. I've been giving, I had been in the fitness industry, and yeah, you know, giving to others, and then I kind of left. Well, in my early years, I abandoned myself, I would say. And then when I was 40, I kind of woke up to the corporate world, which I was working in, the fitness world, which I'd been in many years, and my why. I think I just wanted to understand something deeper than what was in my life. Why? And I went to Pachamama, and I kind of got dipped into the answer, but I didn't know fully what that was, and I had to discover it over the years. And my why is evolving. It's I contemplate the why regularly, like within myself. I introduced myself into the group, and it's interesting because I came from a corporate mind of saying like all that I have, whatever, studied, or that's not who I am. Actually, the more important part is, and it's so interesting because I'm so glad that you brought the spiritual aspect to it. And to me, that's more my why. Because to me, yes, the physical is the vehicle, but the more important part is we need to understand who we are. Forget about all the supplements and all that,
Thank you. And I hear two things, Meg, that I can relate a lot. Several of us, we also have Naima and Alexander. Just to give you a quick intro, we're starting to share how we found our why, our purpose, before we just said what we do. I also, like many of us in this call, but many people, had first, I would introduce myself by my degrees, by my achievements, by my career, and so much that I would believe it. But I always had my spiritual practice, which kept me saying, that's not who I am. Like who I am is kind of the awareness that sees the thoughts, the feelings. But because my social group was like that, it's like an optical illusion that I knew it was an optical illusion, but it's very persistent. And I want to ask you briefly, and then we'll keep sharing, which is, many people, myself included, I think I got a little shift when my father got Alzheimer's, when I myself had some health issues. I already knew a fair amount of some of the medical things, and my Qigong was a very beautiful practice, but I didn't have it at the center. And I think I want to reflect briefly with you, Meg, and then we'll hear from Naim, Alexander, Pikara, and the team, which is often life hands you an inflection point. Sometimes it's a divorce, sometimes it's like a medical thing, and often a realization you could have had earlier kind of becomes almost inevitable. Like you really now just surrender. You're like, there for sure. what's the point of doing all this if it never delivers what I hoped it should deliver, which is like a kind of peace, love, awareness that I know is the real being. I hear in you there was an inflection point that included some of this that's very common in the path. What has helped you after the inflection point to keep, let's say, like the inquiry in your spirit, to know that you have all these tools about fitness and health, but that you have a better compass of what they are for? Like, I understand that you maybe had a similar inflection point, maybe after your 30s. And Pachamama maybe was an awakening, but what practice has helped you like keep asking? There must be more.
What practice?
Yeah, or what do you do to regularly keep checking in, so to speak? And you can think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know it already.
Okay, good.
It's a regular connection with nature.
Yep.
I'd say breath work that is, key, I think, to yoga and you know what? It's a continuous wanting to learn and seek new and other teachers, because I think like there's no one teacher. There's, we can learn from so many.
Yep.
And but I would say ultimately it's more about my spiritual path and always seeking a deeper understanding of my path.
Thank you. And I can relate, I think, when we speak beginner mindset, we say the freshness of the spirit, of the real essence, doing it because, as you know, it's possible to do yoga and do breathwork, but do it from the mind as a physical thing, and then we don't get as much. So a little bit with that in mind, Picara, do you want to share a little bit of how in your path you found your why, a little bit following up on this that we're starting?
Yeah. I don't think about it as my why. That's what was coming to me. I had a lot of health problems as a child and growing up. So a lot of my focus was like, I don't feel well, and how do I feel better? That was a really big focus of my childhood and into my 20s, because of the numerous health problems I had. And at the same time, there was a way in which I just felt like my spirit was always telling me, like, this isn't the end. Like, you're not going to be like this forever. You're not always going to feel like this. And I had a connection with that inner voice and that inner guidance as far back as I can remember. And I remember being 17 at the doctor's, and the doctor said, well, you're just going to have to be on this medication the rest of your life. And I heard the voice inside go, this is not true. So I think that for me, it was just always following this inner voice. And it wasn't a question of like, why am I doing this? It was like, because it was just like, but the voice, that inner voice that to me is honest, truthful. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's not complicated. It's not worry. It's not rumination. It's this clear, clean voice or feeling, that would come through, and I would just say yes to that. And people, I remember when I moved to New York, people said, oh, is this your forever place? I said, I don't even understand that thought. My forever place. I was like, I follow where my heart guides me. And it, it might guide me to acupuncture school, which is a big commitment. Right. So this is not a flaky sort of like, oh, I just go on the whims of whatever my ego is telling me. It's like, no, it's like, it's a deep knowing. And that takes me to the next thing and the next thing. So for me, that's more how I feel connected to myself and know that I'm true to myself, because I'm following that inner voice and I'm listening for it all the time. And I may may have just been blessed to be able to hear it most of the time pretty well. And if I can't, then I have practices, breath work or meditation. I do Sufi practices that really help me get in touch when I feel like, oh, I don't know what's going on and I'm not able to hear the voice. I do, chanting sessions and go on personal retreat. And the goal is just to sit and be with myself. And I know that also sometimes if I don't hear that voice, it's just not the time, like things have to unfold. So I don't get too caught up in, well, why am I doing this? Or what's my purpose behind it? And what's the meaning behind it? It ends up just being, this is what I feel my soul and my heart is called to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Pikara. I resonate. I mean, we use this language that may not be optimal, as you say, because as Meg said, and I'm sure we'll hear from everyone here, you don't find the purpose by thinking, even though the mind is a great tool. I think what I hear from your experience that I really want to highlight, and it's been my experience too directly, is sometimes Ram Dass says that, that you have the thoughts and opinions of the mind, just let them be the thoughts and opinions of the mind. But then in your heart or in your being, however you want to call it, in your loving awareness, there is a kind of, let's say, knowing. And I think the key thing for that voice to keep speaking clearly is to keep saying yes when you hear it clearly. And what you say, it's not a flaky yes. In fact, it's a devotional kind of yes. So thank you for that sharing. I'll pass it. Alexander, can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Would love to hear how you connected to your kind of spiritual calling. And I know, same, you then build a lot of other skills, medical and acupuncture and other things. But how did you go in your path to find and hear that voice, often when the system was not very supportive of that?
Okay, I think was when I was a musician, youngest in 14 years. When I was 14 years, and I began with a musician and concerts, and when I had 24 years, I have a great experience in Madrid, in Spain, and I had a satori, a revelation of what is God, what is the world, what is our life, our being, and in that moment I know that we are all connected with God, with the universe. We are one, and years later I create a Kasasana school. The path it's something that comes with I don't know that it's a spiritual path. I only know that I enjoy playing music, and I do it. After the musician period, I feel it from my heart the healer inside, and I decide to study medical doctor and all the therapy, holistic therapies, and that's what I can to say in my poor English, and in my.
You're doing great.
No, it came across very clear, Alex,
Yeah.
and
Thank you so much.
I just want to say I am glad to hear how that moment of satori can come at anything you're doing. Like you could be playing music in Madrid and it can come to you. And then what is nice to share in community is to support each other so that we keep listening to that spiritual voice as it takes us to other paths that include new holistic things, but really to put that at the center. So that was very beautiful and clear. And in the second part, we're going to talk a little bit about how that voice is calling you now into the future. But let me go a little bit through some of the other people. Naima, Can you hear us okay? And would you like to share a little bit how you've been connecting to that inner voice and source for the work you do and what drives you?
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, for me, definitely curiosity has been a big one. Just so curious about what's possible. You know, different kind of potentials in different areas. The healing. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a part of my mission in this life is around healing and harmonizing and bringing more wholeness and unity. And so I feel like I want to kind of see how much is possible in that sense. And then also on a spiritual level, actually just this morning I had this kind of realization. I've been connecting a bit with like I don't know, messages and hearing from different people like, oh, this might be the last incarnation for us, for some of us. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what's that? Like, why? Like, and so I was just kind of exploring that. And according to some teachings, right, it's like if in this lifetime you're feeling a very strong call towards the spiritual path and enlightenment and all these things, it could mean that this is the life where then you kind of transcend the continuous life and death process, and you kind of, I don't know what you call it, kind of like merge into a higher dimension or reality or something. So then I was like, okay, that cools and that resonates, but that means this is my last human life. I want to enjoy human life as much as possible, and I want to be healthy as long as possible. So I realized that's kind of a bit like from a scarcity mindset of like, I don't want to let go, but it also is just like, no, I just want to live every moment and embrace every moment and just be wowed by every flower and every leaf and every sunset and my own body and my own everything, and just like a heightened awareness of like the magic and wonder of every second and every
Wow.
so that actually came up today, and I'm here with my sister who's pregnant, and her supposed date of giving birth is 11/11, so feeling super magical numbers and so many signs, so just kind of resonating in that energy, and also feeling connected to him as like a like as if we know each other from another time, and it's like, yay, we get to hang out on Earth again, like big welcome party. And there's something else about the stars and the Pleiades that I've been like tuning into a bit. So yeah.
And Naima, one last thing that I would love you to share briefly. I know that connected to what Alexander said, I know that even though you also studied in the more traditional institutions and policy and economics and development, that for you, the connection to nature and to music, dance, movement has come up very much as your voice to bring this harmonizing and healing. Do you want to share a little bit of how that is coming up to your vision of thriving and your own tuning to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, you were there in the experience back in March where I made the decision that, or kind of the clarity came through that music and dance, I want them to be the center of my life, not just on the side when I have time. And that my heart and soul are like, have always been like guiding me towards that, but kind of pushing that away with other priorities and things that we think are more important. So and I just feel such a connection like to divinity through that, to my body, to releasing and empowering, and the community effect of what music and dance can bring. So yeah, it just feels like such a guide for life.
Beautiful. And last week was nice to share with some of us together as you were guiding and being the space for that kind of energy to flow through, and the kind of the simplicity. I think I just want to highlight something that Pikara mentioned, which is that often that voice, that knowing, that spiritual clarity that Alexander mentioned as Satori is very simple. The thing that's often very complicated is the thinking. Often the guidance may take us to do some challenging adjustments in life, but that kind of spiritual clarity is simple, not necessarily easy, but the guidance is simple. So I think it's nice when I saw you taste it so clearly to have it at the center of your life. Yati or Julia, do you want to share a little bit of how you've connected from that experience and what the thriving beyond kind of means to you in that context?
I'm super, super. Wow, it's probably the most interesting. I thought last one, the community one, was interesting, but this is beyond. This is my favorite so far. So it's very interesting. Oh my God, everyone's sharing was. It felt like I could resonate with like everyone a little bit, but for me it was very clear the main why. When I was growing up, because my grandparents, they survived a Second World War, and there was so much illness. They were sick all the time, and I assumed as I was growing up, I've seen so like it was like constant pain, like the joints, the arthritis, like having the gallbladder removed, like surgeries after surgeries, and I was growing up hearing that this is what it is to be old. And for me, it was always like, oh my gosh, being old, it means like I was terrified just thinking that being old means pain is inevitable. You have to struggle. Wow. And my grandmothers, both of them are still alive. So one of these whys was, as a child, I was thinking, what can I do not to feel that way? It's kind of crazy. It's a little bit coming out of fear, but I was like, is this for sure the only way? Like, you get old means like, that's it, you're sick, that's the way it is. And my grandma became grandma when she was 45, a few years older than me. And then the other thing, my parents, they were very healthy. Like, my dad he knows so much about nutrition and food and everything that, as grown up, like, I remember they would buy us a pack of chips like once a year. And me and my brother, we would put it in a basket and we would sit in front of TV and be like, like one chip, and you're just like, oh my gosh, how incredible it is. Because they already knew the struggle, and they were saying there is never a reason not to choose the best for yourself, even if you don't have the money, because some people think like being vegan or eating healthy is like very expensive. And my mom was like, no, you just don't buy processed meat. You can't afford good meat, then you just buy something else. You buy eggs or cheese or high quality bread, but you don't go for shit food ever. Like, no matter how poor you are, there is always something that you can choose that is whole foods. So I think my parents were one of the wise. But also it's very interesting because I think of my grandpa. He was marathon runner. He died at the age of 83 of cancer. And it's like, I'm reading this book of The Outlive, the Peter Attia, and everything what he says, all the reasons why, what causes the diseases that people have. My grandfather did nothing, none of these reasons, and he died of cancer. So it's still, you can only do your best. But he was running even after he had his first surgery. I remember he came out of hospital so thin, like slim, like anorexic person, and he was still doing like these weights, like 500 grams. And he was like, I'm telling you, he's like, it's all the mindset. You need to read the books about the mindset. And he was like 78 or something at that point. He already knew so much, and he was always telling me like, Julia, I believe in you, I believe in you. Yes, I think my grandpa, like, he inspired me. Okay, he died of cancer, and now people who know him, they eat unhealthy, live unhealthy, and they're like, yeah, but your grandpa died of cancer, and I'm like, you can't use him. He lived incredible life. For me, he was very inspiring. In his age, he was cycling. He had a whole like cottage house. He had like a whole garden. He was maintaining. He was running at least 3 times a week, 10K a day. So I'm like, he feels amazing. His brain was so like on point. He was helping all of like me and all of his grandkids with math. So that's an inspiration. He lived at least okay, and then cancer hit and he died really quickly, and it was so sad. But at least he lived his other, because my other grandpa who didn't do any of this, he died of Parkinson's. Like the genes I have, I'm like, whoa. I have arthritis, Parkinson's, cancer. I'm like, I really need to be on top of everything. My wife's a little bit out of fear, but also I'm still inspired by my grandpa. Yeah, but there is also a little bit of this moment of, because I'm living like this my entire life, even when I lived in big cities, London, New York, and I had these opportunities to drink and go out, and I would drink, and I'm like, yeah, remember, right now it's okay, you drink tonight, but remember, it's not good for you. There's always this person inside who knows what I'm doing, and sometimes it's like it's okay to let go. Also, what if you die tomorrow? It's how do you find this balance a little bit, enjoying your life, and
And Julia,
I don't know.
One thing that I hear, and it's been in many of the sharings, which is sometimes you're lucky, like Alexander, and at 14 you have a Satori moment. Often we find, even out of fear, like a message, which is like, there must be better than this.
Mm-hmm.
First for us in a more limited way, and then just for all of life. And I think when I think of thriving and beyond, the beyond part is that it's beyond just being a little healthier or like lasting a few more years. It's that there is a quality that Spirit allowed all of us to have, that even as Naima said, like, no matter if this is the last incarnation or whatever happens, or like, it is kind of like wow, but not like the wow of fireworks under like plant medicine. It's like a wow, like that you can enjoy, like in a breath of just feeling like, wow, I am embodied like a spiritual being in a human body. But I want to touch one thing briefly and then pass it to Yati, because I've heard this from Meg, and I know we all struggle with this because I've spoken with Naima and even with Picard about it, which is sometimes the spiritual calling to being healing needs to be balanced with the energy of not spending so much of our time or our energy helping others and healing others that we forget we are also at the core a kind of caretakers lovingly for our health. Because when you are in a healing profession, there seems to be a lot of urgency to care for others. And in a way, some of that urgency is kind of healthy because it's driven from ideally love, maybe ideally not ego. But I know that all of us, I don't know if Alexander has ever had this, but have often been close to almost burning out, even while doing healthy delivery. Like no matter if we're teaching yoga and fitness and breath work, or we may be not taking enough care of, let's say, elements like sleep or the financial element. So think about this for a little bit, Julia, and then I pass it to Yati, because one of the things why I am excited that we share from this honesty in community is that if we are in the somehow healing kind of a profession, devotion, work, whatever you want to call it, one of the things that's very helpful for community and nature to do is that we keep expressing our spiritual gift in a way that is ideally regenerative, not just resilient, like we, like a rubber band, managed to like almost collapse and then we come back, but that we actually, by having what we're trying to build and support each other, we can, as we know each other, support each other's thriving. Maybe sometimes by passing along a good idea that helps, like financially, passing a holistic thing that we may do for patients, but we forget to do for ourselves. So everyone think about that a little bit while Yati shares a little bit of the path, and then we'll go for a couple of minutes, a little bit of how we can imagine cultivating that duality, which is the saying yes to the calling of being in the healing space, but making sure that we express our gift in a regenerative way for ourselves, our community, and the planet. Yati?
Thank you. Beautiful to be here in this space. The why, I was not looking for the why, but when I was 19, the why found me. And the why was, I'm a vehicle of healing modalities, and it brought me to study Ayurveda. And brought me to study many hows till today. How that I feel the most is the thrive beyond what we are doing now. The thrive beyond what we are doing now is really the most advanced how that I found, and this was maybe a year ago when I met with Pablo. He already managed to select that there is a bigger picture, and here we are in this moment co-creating together the bigger picture and sharing and create. The intuition is what I'm always interested in cleaning the tool, like cleaning the mirror of the inner intuition, and seeing that always to trust that inner intuition. Today we were driving to one place in Nosara, and the guy said there is no parking, and please park the car outside. I just looked and I parked the car outside, because before I would say maybe there is parking, and the guy, I listen to the people, because what the people, they communicate, and the same is one is listening to our own intuition. And the more we listen to the disease is when we don't listen to the intuition, then it needs to come with pain and with illness. So awakening our inner intuition is the key.
Thank you, Yati. And
there is a last thing, there is a checkpoint that we need to do daily. That's why we practice breath work, yoga, meditation. For me, the check is breath work and also surfing. When I surf, I see in what state I am mentally, physically. I'm in the ocean with the elements. So I do these checkpoints regularly. This is the key to maintaining health, and to be able to reflect and to see and observe it as it is. So one know what needs to improve and to grow. And sometimes this mirror is painful, but then it's always reflecting the truth. So that's why it's important to go to those checkpoints, and together we are mirroring each other, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Yati. And I'll share a brief intuition that I have, then open it up again, which is...
I'd love to know what your why is.
Me, Pablo Jenkins?
Yeah.
Yes. So I'll share my why. So my why, let's say, or my... I agree it doesn't have to come in those words or purpose, but mine very clearly is to be a bridge and weaver between ancestral wisdom, all this, and what modern science and practices can bring people at inflection points in their lives. So it a little bit found me, and I'll tell you why the why has 3 points. Why I really, the main pillar of my life going forward and in the present, I wanted to be attuned to what many of you shared. From whatever practices, my Qigong or breathwork reminds me of the voice that Pikara says. So my first point is to say yes to that voice. Joseph Campbell used to say, sometimes you have to give up the life you planned to say yes to the adventure calling you. So it looks like this weaving of Thrive Beyond. The second why I include modern science is because I've been lucky to live with people that have knowledge of both ancestral traditions of thousands of years from the Amazon, from Tibet, but also try to see that we are incarnated in a time in human history where things like artificial intelligence or modern medical stuff are a very unique tool. And it would be so nice to arrive at it, not from patriarchal, ego center, I want to live more, to buy more, to do more, but from a very comfortable befriending of death as a natural thing. So it's not fear of dying,
Yeah.
but it's using the inner ancestral wisdom to complement what no humans had the chance to have as tools, but to keep it very simple. That's where I want to be. I enjoy learning. Like the Tao Te Ching has this line that always helps me a lot, which is, it says, if you try to name and understand the 10,000 things, you get lost. If the 10,000 things find you, I realized that I am, as I say, I have a mind that's very good at learning and math, but there's only so much that a single individual can do, no matter how fast my mind is and how much I can do with AI. Or I feel that no single being can really do meaningful healing work alone. And I have an intuition that the future of the next few decades is one where there will be fewer teachers in central roles, partly because they used to need to be teachers because like no one knew, like they had to come and explain, and they could explain yoga, and it'll be much more like a circle, much more, let's say, feminine in archetype, much less hierarchical. So when I say a weaver of bringing these two, it's not like now Pablo is the expert. It's like that's not my why. It's I would use this analogy. Imagine we were painters and we were painting in a little canvas. It's kind of like to remember that the canvas of thriving is a very expansive canvas, and that love is very full of freedom. So the two things into my why is to do a weaving from the ancestral to the modernity that is finding us, but may also have solutions for the planetary challenges, with two elements: love and trust. And love for what? Love for that inner voice that says there is a beyond. There's something beyond having a house, beyond hearing people. And the trust, because I sense that we have made it so that it's harder to trust our own intuition and to trust ways of collaborating beyond traditional institutions. I think Pachamama was very valuable a few decades ago, where living together physically in community next to nature was, of course, a logical step. But I have a sense that as we're doing today, let's say the vibrational tuning of the moment and planet makes it so that we could advance at the speed of love and trust. We don't need 20 years co-living together, those of us here, to be able to collaborate, not from ego or from lack, but from that voice. And so I think my gift at the best is as a curator, not as a teacher, a curator. Like you know how in museums they have curators, so they don't paint the paintings, but they think, wow, if we bring these artists together, we're gonna see something that is beyond what each artist thought.
Yeah.
So that said, I'll invite a quick reflection, and then we can keep on the WhatsApp, which is the following to all of us that can hear me now. Imagine for a moment, just sitting with the breath and have eyes closed or open. Feel you're just held by Earth in the literal way. You let gravity, for a moment, feel you have nothing to solve, nothing to do for a couple of minutes. You feel the intimacy of the breath. And you stand a little bit like the witness in awareness of that breath. Like you may think the breath is coming in and out of your nose, but the knowing that there is a breath stands somehow beside and beyond. Feel how spacious that field is. It can hold all your sensations right now, your sit bones, your feet. It can hold any thoughts that come in and out like clouds on the sky. It can hold any emotions you're having without judging them or solving them, as if they were currents in the ocean, but you stay like the deep blue ocean still. And from that, I'm going to invite you briefly to an experiment that it's beyond thought, because with the words I'm going to say will make no sense logically. And is try to remember the future. Not your plans for 2025, 2026, but sit with a beautiful group of humans in a beautiful place in nature in 2030. And feel gratitude for magical synchronicities you allowed yourself to say yes to in the years between 2025 and 2030. This is more a feeling. Feel that those things were similar to the joy of things you loved doing as a little kid. Feel that this memory on 2030 has the same quality of some of the most beautiful moments that felt spectacular in the last 15 years of your life, when your calling and life came together in some magical combination. So we stay in the present because the gratitude is in the present. But we don't plan right now for the future. We just remember that something is already there waiting for us to stay open. A little bit like springtime shows up kind of out of its own accord, that what needs to be done is just don't fight with the mind what life is offering. And for just the next minute or so, marinate for a moment into what you sense is already available in what to the present looks like the future, but it's just there is no time in this field. And check in your own inner wisdom. What is healthy to release right now that doesn't help you where you're going? And if you can, release it, because now is the best moment to do it. But if not, at least see it. And check with the breath something that no longer serves you. For that world that's both possible and you can almost hear it calling you. And with the extra space that the exhale gives to the next inhale, exhale a little bit what no longer serves you. And in your own inner wisdom, ask, what is most worth cultivating in the next few months and years to arrive there, to that place that's already there, where there is a thriving of yourself, your tribe, your community, and parts of the earth are showing that thriving is possible. No need to solve everything at once, just show possible. And then trying to softly keep that gaze as awareness, very spacious. Not in a hurry. You can feel the healthy tension between that and where we are in the present moment, which has all the beauty, all the possibilities, some of the things we no longer need, some of the seeds to cultivate. And slowly come back to sitting, breathing, and keeping a similar state of presence. You can softly open your eyes. We're not in a hurry, but you can share 1 or 2 sentences of something that came up as we were tuning to this.
I'm still crying, many emotions, many connection that I saw a vision like holding the hands of all humanity, and that we managed to pass through these difficult times of chaos and war that humanity is right now. And we remember that striving and harmony is our path.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anyone else wants to share? This is all full of freedom, so you can just keep it as your own personal experience or share a couple of sentences. Also beautiful, we can tune to this silence. So feel both free and not in a hurry. This was an invitation to, for a moment, tune from there.
I feel like I've heard this meditation from you a couple of times, and every time it's I think it's third time now I've heard this. It's the best. It's just so good. It feels like it's a very intimate moment. It's hard to share because some things that come up that are like, oh my God, how important it is to let go. And it's all like responsibilities, connections. I can't say any more habits. I don't feel like I have any more of this, except of maybe I even stopped using my personal Instagram, how strongly I am moved by the purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, is there anything else? Is there anything else that that is keeping me stuck? And it feels like I do need to reshift a little bit my energy and focus a bit more to where I want to go. This is the best meditation ever. It's my favorite. Can we do it every week?
Sure.
It's very
I do it
intimate. It's
myself.
like, I think most people don't want to share because the things that come up, if you want to let go of, you're like, am I fucking blind?
No, and this is, Julia,
Like,
I'm going to
you know?
invite you to this.
Yeah.
This, and you've been with me a couple of times, even in person. I like it because of 2 reasons. It is very powerful because when you're invited to drop something right away, like the out breath, giving space, the ego gets very scared. You're like, no way, how come I'm doing? So the tuning for it to work best is receive it lovingly like the witness. Don't feel like, Pablo, now you have to drop this. It's more like, wow, observe as if you were looking at Earth from the moon. And then you would see all our problems and be like, what's all these crazy things with borders and wars? It looks ridiculous, but like ridiculous in a loving way, not like you're so stupid. And I think that amazingly, the most powerful way of releasing is to stay very spacious in loving awareness, because as soon as you come to the doing, it gets overwhelming. So the invitation is a little bit like, just stay. So no, don't worry, just stay with it for a little bit. And then at some point, it's like as if you had been walking all your life with a very heavy backpack, and then you take it off and you're like, wow, like I just feel normal and free. Like, but why was I with that backpack? So it's simple, but not easy. So that's the invitation. And to do it in community, even in a small community, has an extra layer. We have just shared that we want to work from purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing that I invite everyone is to, like Yati felt, like there's almost kind of like hand holding that's possible when you're not worrying so much about your own little patterns, but about your own role on behalf of a bigger thing. That's why I think of springtime. Each flower does their thing, and springtime looks amazing. But they're not overly worried about their own thing. They're kind of trusting that around them, other things are gonna do their letting go. Anyway, so so then that makes it also feel less over individual, less like a fencing champion, and more like part of a garden. Alexander, you want to share something?
No, it's a great moment to share, and it's amazing the beautiful souls that you connect in this earth. It's amazing your work, Pablo, here in this planet, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Alex, for joining, and you're also in the WhatsApp group. And as you understand, I'll do a quick summary also of my, let's say, a strategy, which is I see in the mycelium of nature, as many of us have often been inspired by the mycelium, that before the fruit of a mushroom shows up, there is underground, almost invisible to the eye, a very vast interconnection of wisdom, nutrition. So we don't want to stay always abstract, but we want to stay for a little while tuning a new mycelium, Alexander, and then I know in the not far away future, we'll find very tangible ways in which we can support each other's modalities of healing, combine them, find new, better ways. So thank you for the trust.
Amazing.
And that's where we're going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Picara, any last things? Also, silence is, the wisest, so everything is optional. All right. Meg, anything you want to share, or also as we are is perfect. So just I'm giving a chance. Otherwise, we'll close today, and we'll have in the WhatsApp group over the next few days some little nudges to keep spreading what we have activated today, so that we get a tuning, not just of what some of the other people in the community do, but how they tune to their inner wisdom and voice. So Meg, if there's nothing there, if you want, you can unmute. Otherwise, very grateful. Great that you are now joined in, and we'll be in touch in the WhatsApp group and next week.
Thank you.
Have a good night.